Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. In this series, we're aiming to help business owners, business leaders, and fellow coaches by sharing our experience and the experience of our guests who've coached people all around the world in all of different sectors and industries that you can imagine. So, very little more to say other than please now sit back, relax, and enjoy this edition, and look out for a special offer for our loyal audience at the end of the programme. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Coaching Conversation. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Lawrence, all the way from Vancouver, Canada, and we're going to be talking about coaching CEOs and showing them how to build resilience. Kevin, welcome to the Coaching Conversation.
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about this. Resilience is something I'm very passionate about, something I've got wrong a lot of times. So I'm looking forward to this today.
Perhaps for the audience, you just introduce yourself, explain how you now find yourself as a CEO coach, particularly in this subject, concentrating on resilience.
Yeah, I mean, I've been for 30 years. I started coaching when coaching was just getting going back in the 90s when it started to become a notable thing. And I've been coaching entrepreneurs, like founder entrepreneurs, CEOs as they evolve, for 30 years. And through this, it's a journey of learning and exploration. And I've continued to learn alongside my clients, plus studying like crazy. I feel like I practically have a PhD in psychology and maybe one in economics because of the work I've done. I don't actually have those, but it feels like that. So I've just spent my career working alongside great founders and entrepreneurs that want to make great things happen. And it creates a lot of learning. And I've distilled it into a few books and now have a practice where we have 12 advisors. And every week we're different places in North America and other parts of the world helping founders or CEOs and their teams to figure out what they got to do to keep growing the organizations and hitting their goals, but then also growing themselves and making sure that they continue to thrive and don't get, messed up too much along the way.
So you've mentioned CEOs and founders. So what or who would be a very typical client?
These days, it's evolved over the years. We kind of have two kind of core clients. We call like smaller businesses and then mid-market. So for us, smaller would be someone that might be doing 10, 20 million of revenue. And those people usually want to scale towards 100 million. It's almost like and then the next group would be those that are about 100 and they want to scale to 500 or a billion. And it's not just about revenue, but those are ways to size the businesses. So sort of smaller, not like they already, if they were tech, they already have product market fit. They already have an exec team. They're already leading the business through a team of leaders. Yeah, that's basically it. But they really want to scale and they want to build a really great company. Like they're not just wanting to make a bunch of money. That's a byproduct. They actually take pride and want to build something that they're proud of.
So when you're talking about the individual, is there a particular kind of individual, particular outlook that they might bring?
Yeah, we've over 30 years, we've figured out who we help the most. And it's a founder-led business. They can own it. The family can own it. Private equity can own it in the background, but it's founder-led for sure. They have big aspirations. Like they really want to make something big happen. They generally love to learn, or they have learnt to love to learn. And finally, they're purpose-led. Like it's more than just money. Like, so we have this company out of Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada, Angela Santiago. We worked with her for 15 years, and that's called the Little Potato Company. And they're little, colorful, flavorful potatoes. And she's built this. They do hundreds of millions of pounds of these a year now. They breed, grow, process, and package, and put on the shelf in retail. But their purpose is like to save the potato and feed the world better. They believe in potato as a crop. It's an efficient crop. It's a healthy crop. Not the old boring russet potatoes, but these little cool, almost like boutique potatoes. That's not what she calls it, but the organization is really trying to make a difference. They make money. But for a lot of the organizations, the money is secondary, and it's important because but it's not the primary reason. And that shows up also because they generally really care about investing in developing their people. Like they want their people to win too. It's not just about the owner. And we've worked with businesses where it's almost only all about the owner. Those aren't fun. Those aren't fulfilling businesses. They can make a lot of money, but there's no intrinsic reward from that kind of work.
And when you're talking to them, perhaps for the first time, what are the typical challenges that you find they're facing?
Well, most of them, like if I look at in the second major, there's another book called Scaling Up that I wrote a big part of and had a big contributor to. But this second one, Your Oxygen Mask First, it's essentially the 17 most common challenges that they're up against. So one, sometimes they're burnt out. Sometimes their team's too weak. Sometimes they don't like their actual role and what they're doing. Sometimes they don't have a good enough advisors, or they have weak advisors, or advisors that are, for when they were smaller and not bigger. Sometimes they're not learning enough. Sometimes they're not getting the growth that they actually want as an organization, and things are going backwards. Sometimes they have fragmented teams. It's always different, but normally most people, when they call, and we're all referrals, most people, when they call, there is some pain. And what I know, it's either been the banker, their CFO, their spouse, their doctor, their lawyer. Like someone has given them some information where they're like, wait a second, this is more than I can handle. I need to get some help. So something has rattled them, and they finally decide, okay, I'm going to find an expert to help me navigate this situation.
And so how would you define resilience, and how does it manifest in those kinds of clients?
Mm-hmm. Well, normally, leaders of businesses have to have a lot of it. I mean, it's basically, can you take a punch to the face and then keep standing up and keep going? Right? Or do you need to go and sit down and have a nap for an hour? It's an ability to deal with really challenging, stressful things and continue to step towards them and have the energy and the clarity and the resourcefulness to push through on really challenging things. And whether that's, challenging things in your life or challenging things in your work or your community. And usually one of the big enablers to it is, how much help are you willing to get? How good are you at getting people to help you through those things? Because we can't do it alone. Although we try, but that usually doesn't last.
Yeah, the ability to bounce back is often the difference between success and failure, isn't it? And the difference between actually being world class and something else.
Yeah, and it's hard because you have to get metaphorically so many punches to the nose, so many, and continue to stand there and take it and push forward and being willing to try again and try better. And that's not for everyone.
No, certainly if you're a CEO in an established organization, resilience is almost in the job description, isn't it?
Yes.
You're going to be required, as you describe it, to stand up, and you're going to be required to lead both yourself and everybody else through all the various challenges and tortures that come your way, whether they're positive or negative challenges. So
I think in any leadership role, because basically when people on your team are having a challenge, you have to stand in front of them to support them, or beside them, whatever, or behind them. But you need to be there for the most challenging parts of it and support your team.
When you were describing, I need to get some expert help with this, is the start point usually for the conversations with yourselves.
Yep.
Do you have a diagnostic? Do you have some way of peeling back the onion to try and really understand the cause of the issue?
Well, our main tool is asking questions. So like the other day, we were talking to a CEO that was referred to us, and they built a substantial family business that they've been a part of. Some relatives built it. They're now in the second generation. And the business does a couple $100 million a year of revenue. They built something quite incredible, actually. But it basically then see, okay, what's going on? What are your challenges, and how are you hoping that we can help? So we just understand. And so, in that case, I had a conversation with that CEO. I brought in one of my team members. We had a second conversation. My team member is going to go to their organization and meet with them and meet some of their people and really dig in. It's not rocket science. Normally, people know what's good and what's challenging them. Now, you got to create enough trust for people to be able to share that with you. So up front, we listen to the CEO, and we have a whole bunch of tools and diagnostics in the background. But up front, normally, because we do the same thing every day, every week, there's only so many different versions of the problem, is that we can get quite a good sense. Now, when we start the work, we go in and we do a much deeper diagnostic. We look at the financials, we look at the strategy documents, we look at the team and the structure, and we look at how the CEO is wired. So we have a whole bunch that we do. But most of it, these leaders and CEOs are brilliant. They know. It's just a matter of whether you can ask it in a way where they'll tell you.
When you say they know, are they prepared to share? Are they prepared to make themselves vulnerable with you? And
that depends. It depends person to person, and also how we show up. Now, because people are referred to us, we're already considered trusted to a degree.
Yep.
But some people are more guarded than others. And what I know is I don't expect them to tell me the whole truth. Like the deep truths often come out months later, and they may not get said up front. But our job is to get as much of the information we need to figure out if we can help them, because we don't want to take someone on if we can't help them. But some people are more guarded than others, and that's okay. That's, at some point we need to get started. And as that trust builds more. So for example, I have a CEO that I worked with it was 18 months until he came into he texted me the night before and said, "Kevin, we need to have a serious conversation about my drinking." I'm like, okay. And so in the coaching session we had, he disclosed that he was a professional drinker, like serious alcohol problem, like 14 to 16 drinks a day. Yeah. And yep. But that took 18 months. He knew he was an alcoholic before this. It took 18 months of us working through all these other things. There almost wasn't much left. And I had no clue. But he told me about it. We got him to an AA meeting that day. And I went recently with him and his family to get his 15-year cake, where he celebrated 15 years of sobriety, which was, it was for him, it was life-changing. But it took 18 months of working through stuff before that came to the surface, and that's fine. He was finally, he was finally ready.
I think that's obviously an extraordinary case, but you talked earlier about when you start to work with clients, you've got diagnostic tools and other tools to help address the issues that they're facing. What sort of tools would they be? How does that work?
Mm-hmm. So in our approach, we run a growth strategy playbook. So where we have a series of tools that we use over a couple of years to build in and start to build up a better strategy and a stronger execution engine, right? These are, when we work with clients for 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, like it's a long-term growth partnership. So our upfront is it's not rocket science. It's quite simple, actually. So we have some questionnaires we'll do of the executive team to get a pulse on their perspective on the organization health, and calibrating pieces on the strategy. We review their strategic tools compared to our frameworks and tools that we use. So we do a review of that. We do engagement surveys sometimes of the next layer of the organizations and the different teams to see the health. Sometimes we do get fully into it. Sometimes we don't, but we do an assessment of the key executives, either a simple version, which is CEO's perspective, or a deeper version. And then every quarter we do a micro assessment every quarter to get a pulse on what's working. But a lot of it is assessing their strategic and execution tools versus what great looks like in our mind. And that's done by our advisors, just through pure document review and looking for what's great and looking at the gaps. We do some psychometrics too on the CEO and exec team and understanding how they're wired. It's
when you're working with the CEOs, you go well past them. You penetrate deep into the organization, and so
in some of the gigs. Yeah.
right.
So we have two different things. One is just coaching the CEO, helping them, and we use in your oxygen mask first. We get them to do the assessment in that book about the habits they have and where they need to focus. We get them to build out their master plan, which is their long-term goals for themselves, like 10 years plus. And we look at their work, their self, and their life, which is principles in that book. So we're building a holistic set of goals and ambitions for the CEO, not just work, because that's a real big piece of their resilience, is the things they do for themselves to stay clear and energized, and making sure they're living the life they want, because that gives them energy. If they only focus on work, that doesn't work so well. And then the second piece is when we drive the growth strategy, that's when we work with them and their team. So for example, a CEO that I coach one-on-one, last week I was meeting him one-on-one, and then one of my team members worked with him and his team on their strategy and the execution of all of that. So it's like two separate pieces that we do as a firm.
Okay. And concentrating on the one-to-one aspect, and I know you mentioned people you've worked with for months and people you've worked with for years, but typically what would a normal program look like? How often would you meet? Would you meet face to face? How long would that program sort of last?
Mm-hmm. Well, with CEOs, to start with, CEO coaching is different than executive coaching. Executive coaching tends to be 6 to 12, maybe 18 months, like it's a project. CEO coaching is more of a partnership. So, CEO, I would say lots of the CEOs it goes for years. It could be decades, as long as we're continuing to help them to grow. And normally what it looks like, there's kind of three different versions that we use. There's the traditional coaching method, which I don't normally use with CEOs because they don't need it. But traditional coaching is 2 or 3 times a month for a call, and then occasionally face-to-face. Most of the CEOs we work with, it might be 1 or 2 quarters of twice a month, but generally it's once a month. And whether it's an hour or 90 minutes. And so, for example, I got a call with one of the CEOs. Actually, it's co-CEOs that I work with, and we do 90 minutes a month. And then we do a face-to-face as needed when we can, and we might spend a half day or a day together once or twice a year. Other clients, I've got some in Boston, and it's also we do a lot of co-CEOs or family businesses where there's co-leadership, which is interesting. It's very interesting. It actually works way better than you would think. And actually, I'll give you an example. Actually, no, there's 3 brothers I work with out of India, and we have a monthly call, talking with the 3 brothers together, because when you have co-leadership, they want things done as a unit, not too much individual, because the individual can fragment. If we keep the conversation together, it's stronger. And then we have a full day at the 6-month mark, and then we spend 3.5 days once a year. So I was just in Singapore with them a couple weeks ago, a day with them, one-on-one, which is we're coaching and troubleshooting all the stuff, a couple days with the team, and then a half day to wrap up. So generally 1 call a month for most, and then sometimes a half a day a quarter or a day every 6 months to a year would be normal. But lots of them are only just, phone or Zoom monthly.
And I guess in partnership with a number of the organizations, as some CEOs retire or move on, that they pass the baton to the next generation, and you continue in the same sort of vein. Is that right?
It depends, because the coach is like the CEO's person. So if a new person comes in, they've got to choose to make sure it's the right fit. And a lot of our organizations, like, we're more connected to the CEO than we are the org. So it's like if they went to a different org, they would probably bring us with them.
Okay.
Because of that relation, because it's a personal relationship that you end up building.
And when you go to the other part of your portfolio, when you're working with the wider team, what's the format for that, and how long would that last?
Well, again, our business is designed to be long-term partners. Like, we don't do short-term gigs. That's not our intent. Like we say, look, if we work together less than 18 months, you've wasted your money. You shouldn't do it. It should be long-term. But when we work with the team, we normally start off and we do more, we do all the upfront assessment like we were talking about. And then we'll spend a couple of days with them in the room defining their strategy, like clarifying the long-term, which is 10 years plus, locking down the plan for 3 to 5 years, 1 year, and then quarterly goals. And with those teams, we touch base once a month to keep them focused and accountable and troubleshoot anything monthly. And then every quarter we do our reset. And normally it's 2 days every quarter. Everyone flies in or drives in, whatever. And we get in a room and we hold ourselves accountable to how we performed over the last quarter and what do we learn, like a reflection. And then we have some deeper strategic conversations that we need to align around to move the business ahead. Or we could be troubleshooting short-term issues sometimes. And then we map out the next commitment for 90 days. So it's almost like a football coach would do in terms of your running practices, and then you have games, practices and games. And that system, what's interesting is that's not the strategic plan that we start with. That's hypothesis. It's interesting. But it's the learning and iteration monthly and more deeply on a quarterly basis that actually creates the intelligence and insight for growth. And that's where we create the most value with them, is driving the quarterly learning and iteration.
And do you find that as you go through that journey with them as the team as a whole, that the caliber, the quality of the thinking, the caliber, the quality of the delivery changes?
Yes, a lot. Because we have frameworks and tools that are used to crystallize the strategy or enhance or clarify the execution. So there's a layering that gets in, and they become, it's again, if we go back to athletics, they become notably more skilled individual athletes, and they have better plays, playbooks that they've used to win consistently. So it's a consistent refinement. Yes. And they become notably more capable. Interestingly, and sometimes we realize that people on the team aren't able to handle the level of play. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need to change jobs, or sometimes they need to go move on to a different company, which is unfortunate. But the quality of the team organically gets notably better, and then we end up making some changes too.
So from a personal point of view, what gives you the greatest satisfaction from your work?
I just love it. Like, I love seeing people thrive. And when you look at it, and like the two-person, the co-CEOs I'll be talking to later today, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I've been watching them grow and develop, and they're continually getting to a higher level. So obviously there's, this year we have a couple of clients that are going to sell. Two will probably sell, and they'll sell between, $600 and $900 million, which is those are good exits. Like, that's cool. And that's almost a confirmation that you've done something good. But more than it's seeing the leaders grow and develop and build a really great organization that they're proud of and I'm proud of too. Like, the economics are cool. That just makes it, we're playing an economic game, but seeing people grow and build great things. Like, I love construction. I love taking something good and seeing it become great. It's very, very rewarding to see what we can create. Kind of like an artist almost.
Kevin, it's been great talking to you. We're running out of time now. If any of the audience want to learn more, where can they find you?
Lawrence & Co. Lawrence, ANDCO.com is our firm. And then you can get the books, Your Oxygen Mask First, or The 4 Forces of Growth, on Amazon or anywhere else. But yeah, just do a search. And if there's something that our belief is to share as much as we can. There's probably 1,000 articles I've written on our website, lots of interviews with growth CEOs, case studies and examples of how people have done it. So, lots, and I did a podcast for a few years too. So there's lots of great resources. If people want to go and figure stuff out themselves, it's all there. Happy for people to self-serve and get what they need.
Kevin, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode of The Coaching Conversation. See you again next time. So, there you have it. The latest edition of The Coaching Conversation. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful, and I hope it did what it set out to do. As promised at the beginning of the programme, here is a special offer for you, our loyal audience. If you reach out to me at gwiley@sagedream.com and mention this podcast, we'll make available to you a coaching program for you and all your team at a 50% discount. So where can you reach us? So it's definitely gwiley@sagegreen.com. You can also reach us at the Executive Mindset at sagegreen.com, and our website is clearly theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you enjoyed this, do please leave us with a wonderful rating on Google. We'd really appreciate that. So nothing more for me to say now other than see you again soon.